evening once again. My name is Adam Feasy and I bid you welcome to the Madhouse. How you doing, Mark?
I am doing well, and I also bid thee welcome to the Madhouse. It's been a crazy couple of weeks, and we've got a really great guest coming up.
Oh, yes. Honestly, ever since I heard this guy's solo music, I wanted him on. Myke Gray, what's going on, brother? Are you good?
I'm very well, thank you. Pleasure to be here. Honored to be asked. So thank you very much.
Hey, it's hardly an honor, mate. We're a new show. But yeah, so I have been recently stunned by your new solo effort, Shades of Grey. I must admit, I'm not usually so on stuff that's mainly instrumental, but just your playing on it, the technicality of your playing is just mad, honestly. What made you want to do instrumental stuff? Because people would know you best probably from your time with Skin. And
well, I mean, it was obviously I've been playing guitar quite a long time. I mean, from the age of 11, 12, and I'd spent a career playing music and being in Skin and Jagged Edge, and I've spent my life writing songs for singers. You know, if that's kind of my real passion in life is writing songs, you know. But the way that I was in two bands at once. I was in a band called Red, White and Blues, and I was in a band called Skin. Red, White and Blues were touring with Whitesnake and Chickenfoot and Lynyrd Skynyrd, and Skin were obviously going around playing, and we were doing Download, and we were touring with Little Angels. So there was two big projects going on, and I had two bands running simultaneously. And unbeknownst to me, that caused a lot of jealousy amongst the singers of these bands. And in a very bizarre couple of months, both of these bands broke up, even though we were scheduled to play Download in both bands. Both Red, White and Blues and Skin were due to play Download. I think it was 2011 or 2012. But because of the mindset of certain members of the bands, both the bands split up and neither band played at Download. And I was just like so gutted and felt so betrayed and let down by the whole experience that I just went, I'm not doing this anymore. And I stopped playing music for about 5 years.
See, I actually was there at both of those particular Downloads. I would have loved to have got to see it.
Yeah, I mean, and so I stopped playing music, and I was going through a very bad divorce at the time, or went through a bad divorce, and eventually the lure of music pulled me back. It's like I just felt that there was this emptiness. It didn't matter how much money I made or whatever else I was doing in my life, there was this void in my soul. And so I thought, I've got to play music again. But I did not want to work with singers again, because throughout my entire life, they've been nothing but a pain in the ass. And I could write an entire book about the various experiences that I've had to endure at the hands of singers. So I thought, what I want to do is just get back to what brought me into music in the first place, which was the sound of a guitar. It was the sound of Eddie Van Halen's guitar that made me decide that I want to be a guitar player. It was Randy Rhoads' Mr. Crowley guitar solos. It was Lost Horizons, Michael Schenker. These are the things that pulled me into music, not singers. It was guitar players. And so I just thought, right, what I'm going to do is just try and become a better guitar player than I was before. And so I just practiced and practiced and practiced. And eventually out of this practicing, these little parts started to materialize. And I've always, whenever I've written for bands in the past, I've always kind of approached the guitar solo in the same way that Richie Sambora or Angus Young would, which was, it was just an extension of the song. Something that kind of gave a little segue. You did your second chorus, you had your middle eight, you did your guitar solo, and then you go back to your choruses. And if you look back through Skin's back catalogue and Red, White and Blues, the songs have always kind of been structured like that. So then all of a sudden I started to write these little pieces which were very reminiscent to the things that got me into music in the first place. The guitar solo on Hell Bent for Leather, or the guitar solo on Flying High Again. These little instrumental pieces that were kind of like the things that dragged me, the guitar solo on Kill the King. You know, these little pieces started to go, hey, I can write these little things too. But they would never have been anything that I would have ever put into a song like, you know, like You Don't Love Me or Look But Don't Touch. It was, they were their own standalone little pieces. And then all of a sudden I started to think, well, I could actually write some instrumental songs here, and I wouldn't have to work with a singer. and I could still be creative. And that is how Shades of Grey came about.
Nice.
The singers, so speaking for me and Adam, who are both the front men for our bands, we can be very ornery.
Yeah, I apologize on behalf of singers everywhere for what our kind has put you through, brother.
It has been the bane of my life. I will not lie to you, you know, because straight away, you know, if you think about the music industry, there are two very different components to it. One is the performance. You know, it's like when you go and see a band, it's very much the performance of the band that pulls you in. You know, the people like Axl Rose, the Slash, the Tommy Lees, the David Lee Roth. It's the characters, especially within rock music, the Rob Halfords, the Sebastian Bachs. You know, it's like those larger than life characters, which is kind of what rock music is all about. It gives you something that no other music can give you. People like Gene Simmons, you know, Nikki Sixx, you know, these are not the kind of guys that you're going to see in pop bands. It's all about the largeness of their characters. But of course, that comes with a huge amount of personality and a certain mindset that's going to enable you to do that. And then you have the other component, which is the songwriter, the guy who's writing the song, the vehicle of what everything else is based upon. You know, so in my experience, it's been like, it's my song and I'm going to let you sing it, and I'm going to tell you how the line should be sung, and I'm going to tell you what the harmonies are, and I'm going to tell you what is good and what is bad about your performance. And obviously that goes bang, bang, bang with a singer that tends to go, but I'm the most important thing and everything I do is great. And when you think about it, most singers have a very limited range. You know, it's normally about 12 notes, and their entire ego is based on their ability to sing maybe 12 notes. You know, unless you're Rob Halford and you've got like this unbelievable range, you know, and so there's always this huge clash, and has been throughout my career, of the arguments between these two personalities. And of course now I sing songs myself, you know, so now I understand it a little bit more from the singer's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, so with your previous bands, were you the main kind of driving force songwriter then?
Oh, in all of the bands, you
Yeah.
know, if you look at the writing credits on Skin and Jagged Edge and Red, White and Blues, you'll see that, you know, I don't think I've written every song that I've ever recorded, you know, so and that came about from when I was working with UFO. You know, when I first started to play music, like I said, it was all about the guitar solos.
Yeah.
And then when I was working with Phil Mogg, and Phil Mogg is very much the person who taught me about songwriting. You know, I'd sort of been in loads of various lineups of Jagged Edge, and then I got the invitation to play for UFO. And it was only then that I realized what songwriting was all about. And I saw Phil work, and I saw how he approached songs lyrically and how he structured his melodies, and he very much saw and described songs like movies. He said, well, what's the beginning of the movie? And, you know, there has to be a climax to the song, you know, and it was kind of like all things I'd never really considered. I was 17 or 18 years of age. And he opened the doors to songwriting. And after my experience of working with him, I realized I've never written a song up until now. You know, only now do I really fully understand what songwriting is. And obviously then that led to Jagged Edge and everything else that went on before, you know, but, you know, the songwriting component is a big part of my life.
See, Phil Mogg, I've always rated as one of the best rock songwriters there is.
Oh, absolutely.
I was brought up on bands like UFO because of my dad, who's also actually my band's drummer, which it makes for interesting times in rehearsals, trust me. But he brought me up on bands like UFO, and finally, a few years ago at Download, funnily enough, finally got to see them. It was an absolute travesty, though, because they were put on at 11 o'clock in the morning. But they drew a massive crowd, and just those songs are just timeless, as you know.
I'd grown up, Michael Schenker is one of my 3 all-time guitar heroes, whether it be Michael Schenker, Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen. So in my teenage years, I could play you every one of these songs, you know, I knew them all. And so when that call came, it was like, absolutely, of course I'm going to do it. How am I going to say no? And we went out to this little rehearsal place. Actually, it wasn't little at all. It was a huge aircraft hangar. And I was there with the bass player and the drummer. Jim Simpson was on drums and Paul Gray was on bass. And they were in the lineup of the Misdemeanor tour. And so we went through the songs, just the 3 of us. And then Phil turned up, and the first song we played, well, he said, "What song do you want to play?" And I said, Lights Out. And so that was the first one. So we started with Lights Out, and I cannot put into words what it is like when Phil Mogg actually sings. It's like this resonance, this depth, this kind of like, oh my God, it sounds exactly like the record, and he's standing right next to me. And it was the first time, even though I'd worked with many singers before that, it was like, this is the first singer I've ever worked with. Everything that happened before did not count. This is a new beginning.
And of course, when you're in that space with him, I suppose he's not trying to play up to a crowd or anything. You're just hearing that Phil Mogg sing as such. Like,
yeah, I mean,
there's nothing else trying to kind of get in his mind other than sing it now. You know what I mean?
I've been very lucky. I mean, I've been truly blessed, you know, because I have worked with some of the greatest singers in the world. I've worked with Bruce Dickinson, I've worked with Phil Mogg, Neville McDonald, Matty Alfonsetti. You know, these are Chris Thompson from Manfred Mann. And these are, when you have a great singer, it is effortless to them. You know, and I've worked with lots of bad singers too, you know, but these guys, they're on a different level. They really are the Ronaldos and the Messis of singing, where it just kind of flows out of them. You know, Neville McDonald is the best singer I've ever worked with. He would slay anyone. It's hard to put into words how phenomenal he was.
He's still doing all right for himself these days with Hand of Dimes.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is one of the greatest singers in the world. I mean, we toured with Whitesnake, we toured with Thunder, and, you know, fearless. He could go up against anyone. You know, there was no fear in this man's voice. He was phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I was blown away, honestly, when I heard him sing.
Yeah,
but yeah, obviously it's been an abnormal year for musicians like us. So, like, this whole Shades of Grey album, you did it pretty much all yourself at home, I think. Am I right? Did you play everything, or?
Yeah, I have a home, like a studio in my house, and so, I mean, 2020 has been a strange year. But I'm by nature a very reclusive human being, so the not socializing thing, I'm completely cool with. That doesn't really affect me too much. The way that Shades of Grey came about, I was waiting for a singer, as always, to get their act together, and they were just dragging their feet. So I just thought, I just can't sit around waiting for someone else. So I just wrote a song and thought, okay, I'll just record it myself. And the song was I Get Up. And I just wrote that one song and then just recorded it just as something to do, you know, while I was waiting around. And I finished it and I played all the instruments on it. I did my rough guide drum track and then I sent it to Pete Newdeck, who's the producer of Shades of Grey, and he played all the drums on it. And then he sent it back to me. That's the way I normally work, is I will put together most of the song, meaning the entire structure. I will program what I perceive to be the drums on the song. I will work out all the harmonies. I'll do all the bass parts, guitar parts. And then I send it to Pete, and Pete's also got his home studio with a drum setup.
Yeah.
He records the drums and then sends it back to me, and then I redo everything properly. But in order for Pete to do that, I do have to send him like most of the arrangement, you know, because, you know, it has to be, you can't change the drums, you know, so you've got to have that right. So that's what happens. And then I go around the process of redoing everything for real.
Yeah, I mean, when I hear a lot of unsigned bands these days, for example, that they've maybe spent their first time in the studio, not had the best of budgets for production and stuff like that. The one thing I always find lets it down is the recording quality of the drums. But the drums on Shades of Grey sound absolutely brilliant and really cleanly produced, you know.
On the instrumental album, or because you've got to remember that my solo album is called Shades of Grey, but my solo project is called Shades of Grey. My new, so I know it's a bit confusing.
Yeah. No, on the instrumental stuff that I heard, the drums sound really just nice and polished, but not like over polished to the point that the life drains out of them.
Yeah, I mean, the way we did that, we recorded that in Wales in a little studio called Red Rock Studios, and the producer was Lyndon Price. We recorded the drums, and yeah, we did a great job. But one of the things that you touched upon, the quality of your work will always be down to the amount of time that you have in the studio. You know, it's like I spend maybe 6 to 8 weeks per track, getting that exactly how I want it to be. Of course, that would be a ridiculous amount of time in a recording studio. And I'm always redoing things, you know, it's like there's always this honing process. You know, I may go back and redo all the guitars if I think that a melody line has suddenly changed to a degree that the original chord structure doesn't fit it. That's what happened on the last song, Take Me Higher. I finished the entire song and then went back and redid the guitars, because the way that I sang the vocal needed the guitars to be played in a slightly different way. Even though I'd spent maybe 4 or 5 days recording the guitars, editing them, tracking them, the vocal warranted a brand new guitar track. So I went back and did it all again. Of course, you wouldn't be able to do that if you were hiring a studio.
Yeah, I guess that does kind of come on to a little conversation we were having before the interview starts, just about home recording and that. I mean, I would recommend getting a home setup to any artist and just diving in and trying to learn how to do it yourself. Would you kind of agree with me there, or?
I mean, for me, the recording process in my house has been absolutely vital for my entire career. I remember going back to the early days where I used to have one of those Tascam 4 tracks.
I remember those.
Where you put your little cassette player, you put your little cassette in and you record your parts. And this is all those songs like House of Love and Tower of Strength and Look But Don't Touch. They were all recorded on this little thing. And throughout, I remember when we were doing the Red, White and Blues album, I'd written like about 120 songs, and Matti flew over from Sweden, and for one weekend we went down to my studio, which at the time was at the bottom of my garden, and we actually went through 120 songs in one weekend, where I basically had all of these songs in my studio, all roughly demoed, and then he would just listen to them and go, yeah, I like this one, no, I don't. But the idea, I don't know how I would have I don't know how any songwriter could exist without some way of recording and honing your ideas. And one of the main reasons why I say this is when you're playing a guitar and you're singing, it limits what you can sing.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're someone who is phenomenally rhythmically minded and you can sing across the beat. But when you have a backing track, it will change the way that you write melodies. It will allow you to sing things differently. You know, and if you're playing everything on the beat, when you're playing and singing at the same time, it limits what you can do. Unless you're Sting, you know, someone of that, or Geddy Lee, you know, someone who has that ability to change parts of their brain, so their hands and their voices are doing different things. But that is very much a different level of musicality. So for me, songwriting, I couldn't imagine it without a home studio. I would recommend that everyone buys if you're a songwriter, if you want to make a career out of music, then get into home recording.
I think that's actually a big part of that is being able to reproduce it. For me, I had songs going through my head right through the 1970s, right into my teen years. And it wasn't until I picked up a guitar and put those, wrote down some words and had the chords that I could reproduce, that I began to remember the songs. So in that respect, that was my recording. That was how I would record it in my head. And then later, we got the cassettes with the single mic, you know, the cheesy little thing that, but then it was high tech then. Then we recorded everything we were in our friend's garage, and we'd have one mic and the cassette, push the play and record. And I've got bags of those cassettes now. Like,
yeah, me too. I've actually got demos of songs that I've written with Bruce Dickinson, Adrian Smith, Chris Thompson, and they're just on these little cassettes. That's it.
Those will fetch a pretty penny one day.
It's the ability to be able to recall. And I've also got a little tip for any budding songwriters out there. If you're working on a song the night before, but you can't remember it in the morning, it wasn't any good.
I mean, over the years, when you listen back to things, and I've seen this huge progression through the years. Like I said, at the very beginning, it was just on a little 4-track with a little cassette that you go in, you know, and then we would be working on Neve desks. You know, there were no digital desks. When we were doing the first Skin album, first Jagged Edge albums, there was no computers involved in the process. And now everything, you know, pretty much is done by the computer. And as a result of it, music has changed. You know, that kind of precision, you know, the precision that now applies to a lot of modern music and now has become familiar to people's ears, you know, that you were never able to get, you know, stuff like Rammstein, where everything is put on the beat and it's all quantized. You know, you wouldn't be able to do it without a computer. Def Leppard, you wouldn't be able to do it without a computer.
Yeah, see, Rammstein are just one of those bands where you struggle to figure out how the human mind can come up with music that's just so crazy. And like, obviously, like I've seen them live a couple of times, and the stuff they even do on stage, I'm just like, how are you not dead? How are you not dead? Like I went down the front the very first time I saw those guys, and the fire's all gone off at the start. And I've seen some serious gig pyro over the years, okay? Nothing compared to when the first flames of the Rammstein gig went up. I literally felt like my face was cooking.
I mean, it's interesting because the technology has been able to allow different mindsets to come into music. You know, I remember when we were doing the second Skin album, I was working with, there was a band called the Utah Saints, and they were in the studio next to us. And they asked me to come and do a track, you know, do some guitars for them. And so it was the first time that I'd seen, you know, artists that we created music purely with computers. You know, we were going in and we were playing live as a band. I mean, the second Skin album was played live and, you know, just with some overdubs, you know, and then there was this band that was working like like I said, like 10 weeks on one song. And I was like, how do you spend so long on one song? 20 years later, I'm doing exactly the same thing. But because this style of music and it has now brought like the geeks, the guys who can just sit in front of a computer for 10 hours in one go, obviously that has an influence on the kind of music that they would make and the level of detail that goes into the music now. It's very different to a Rolling Stones album or a Black Crowes album, where people are just playing and they're all kind of getting into a vibe. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but they're all vital components of this continual growth of music.
Yeah, I mean, you can always tell when someone's done the really polished, not computer driven, but like vastly aided by the computer as such, versus when they've just kind of gone to the studio, hooked up their stuff and got on with it. Both have their big merits, but I always feel like you've got to sort of take from both to really capture the full feeling of it. I mean, that's just coming from playing the kind of music I do.
Yeah, for me, it's down to what you want to achieve. For me, there's still nothing that can touch the soul in the same way that just a singer and a piano or a singer and an acoustic guitar can. If you're in a room with a phenomenal singer, I remember going to see Lady Gaga at Twickenham, and she had this huge show going on and all these dancers, and it was all great and everything. And then she just went down to piano, and it was her and a piano, and it just was so far better than everything else that was going on. That ability just to sing a melody and recite some words and capture someone's imagination, only the greatest can do that. The Freddie Mercury's, the Lady Gaga, these Chris Cornell, it's like you're talking about an elite level of musicality, and it is precious and it's sacred and it's everything that is incredible about music. But don't get me wrong, the opening to an Iron Maiden show or the opening to, a Rammstein show, this is something else. This is also like entertainment at a level of magnitude which is phenomenal. But both are as great as each other. It's down to what you want to achieve with that particular song.
Yeah, although I admit with shows like Rammstein, when they've got so much visual stuff going on, the amount that can suddenly go wrong is just crazy.
That can happen at any time, brother.
I went to see Kiss again at Download a few years back, and they had the big curtain up in front, and they give it the old, "You wanted the best, you got the best, the hardest band in the world, Kiss." They start playing the intro to the first song, and it's meant to go bang, curtain gets pulled up, and like I'd even seen videos of this opening from the other tour dates they'd done in the weeks leading up to it. Curtain didn't move, did it? And these poor roadies are like running onto the stage, and they're just trying to yank the thing down from the rafters, probably almost about to kill themselves doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to I think the final, it was a Motley Crue show, and Tommy Lee's drum riser is doing that big thing, and it gets stuck. It's actually stuck. It's the show that they were filming and everything.
The Crucifly, I believe they call that.
I mean, it's done, but it can happen. It can happen to the best of us.
Well, I'll tell you a funny one, actually. He fell from that one night, and he was ruled out of touring for about a month. But the band got so lucky. They were in Canada, actually, at the time, funnily enough. And so Tommy's hit the floor. He's done for a month. They've had to stretcher his ass out of there. The drummer from Canada's top Motley Crue tribute was at the show and down the front. And so Vince has gone forward. everybody, we really want to play out the rest of the show, but kind of need a drummer. Does anyone know how to play drums for Motley Crue songs? And everyone, like all this guy's mates, are just pointing out, this guy, this guy, trust me, this guy.
I've never heard this story before.
Oh yeah. I'll send you the article about it if I can find it again.
Please do. That's an incredible story.
But yeah, this guy has got on stage, and Vince has asked, "Oh yeah, what's your name? Where you from? How long you been playing?" And just tried to big him up in front of the audience a bit. He goes, "Oh, I'm actually the drummer in Canada's top Motley Crue tribute." And Vince has just gone, "Oh, you shouldn't have said that. We're going to make you really play now." So he's ended up on tour with them for the rest of the Canadian leg and going down into the US.
That's an incredible story. I do remember being at Download one year, and the promoter, I don't know, I think it was about 6 o'clock in the evening, and the promoter, who was my friend, he said, "What do you think the worst thing could be right now?" And I said, it was a year Metallica were playing. And I said, "Metallica aren't here." He goes, "Well, some of them are here, but not all of them are here." And so they wwere then running around trying to find, drummers that would be able to play the Metallica songs. And so they got the drummer from Korn to do some of them. They got the drummer from Dave Lombardo from Slayer, who basically said, I can play it all. And then the other one they asked was Joey Jordison, who was on stage at the time with Slipknot. And apparently this message came across as he was playing. And it was basically, "Do you know any Metallica songs?"
Like, of course I do. Why?
And you go like, "Yeah, I know them all." So on that particular occasion, they had 3 drummers who played at Download.
I've seen the videos from this, actually.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Oh, I'd just love to be in a fly on the wall backstage watching Hetfield run around like a madman going, "Any drummers, drummers, drummers." Usually you can't find a good new drummer for Love Nor Money, but like if James Hetfield's...
There you had 3 drummers who was better than the Metallica drummer.
Well, I was trying not to say it, but yeah, you're right. Jeez.
Well, usually when you have people that are copying their heroes or whatever, right? A lot of the times in the studio, they'll make mistakes and then they'll cover it up. And they actually learn those mistakes, the people who are copying them. So yeah, they sound better because they can do...
That's very true.
Yeah, they can still mess up to the same level. Or,
yeah, but they practice the mess ups. Anyhow. Sorry.
Myke, I see a headstock behind you. Is that your go-to guitar?
When I'm recording guitar rhythm parts, it's all done on this, which is a Suhr Telecaster. The reason I use this is it's a much thicker neck than I would play live. I can't really play lead on it. It's more of a blues guitar. It's not a lead guitar, but and the intonation on it is phenomenal all the way up the neck. So one of the things with recording, if you're using multiple guitars, then you'll find that lots of them are out of tune in places with each other. But on this particular guitar, it's in tune everywhere. So everything that you hear on the Shades of Grey album, rhythm-wise, and everything that you hear with Shades of Grey, the band, is all done on this.
Nice.
But,
it sounds mean when you're playing rhythm on it, to be honest.
The neck is so thick that I can't really play fast on it. It's that kind of vibe. But for my lead work, then I go to my Flying V's, which are much thinner, and I've got an Ibanez as well. Ones that are sort of tailored to my hand size, because I have quite small hands, you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
So in order to play fast, I need a particular kind of neck, but they don't sound very. The thin necks, they move around too much when you're recording, so
Yeah.
you get all of that whirring, you know, and it sounds like a chorus effect. So my recording guitar is nothing that I would ever use live, unless it was a very simple song.
No, I get you. Obviously, at the moment, gigs are, well, a non-starter for the most part, really. There's been some socially distanced shows, but a lot of artists don't really seem to want in on that because I guess there's not as much room for them to get paid or for them, the artists, to even have a good time because everyone's sat down. But when obviously there is now light at the end of the tunnel as far as this whole pandemic stuff is concerned, is there plans to tour the Shades of Grey project?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very strange project from beginning to end. Which initially I just wrote one song, which was "I Get Up." We made a video for it, thinking it would be forgotten about as quickly as it was made. But it got playlisted on Planet Rock, and it's had a really great reaction. And as a result of that, it then prompted, well, let's make an album. You know, obviously, I did a little headline tour in March of last year. We were very, very lucky. So on that tour, we were playing songs from my back catalogue, whether it be Jagged Edge, Skin, Red, White and Blues. We were just playing a selection of those songs. And then obviously lockdown happened. And so it allowed me to devote 2020 to finishing the Shades of Grey band album. But I didn't have any songs. And so what I'm doing is recording one song at a time. I've released 6 songs now, and I'm just finishing the 7th one. I'm shooting a video for the 7th one on January the 3rd. And then as it opens up, you know, because I don't think there's going to be any gigs until probably halfway through next year. And then if things are going well and the album's out and people want us to play, then we'll do some shows. That would be a nice way to round the whole project off.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are getting shows back this year. I'm in no doubt about that. It is just more a question of when, because obviously people will be a bit hesitant at first to really get back out there. But I honestly, as soon as you announce some dates for all that, I'm coming too, right?
Thank you very much. I mean, hopefully the vaccine will allow a situation to you know, I mean, all the musicians are used to playing gigs where the audience are close to them, and you get that connection and people are singing back. You know, there is a lot of interaction which is vital for making a gig. You know, for me, a gig is a combination of the audience and the artist.
Yeah.
The band is only going to reach the level that the audience allows it to reach. You know, it's very much a transference of energy. You know, you go on stage, you're pumped up with this adrenaline and this desire to connect with the audience. And the more you connect with the audience, the more energy the audience give to you. And then as a result of it, you go up to another level. You know, so no band is going to be as good as it can ever be with a restricted audience, or an audience that doesn't participate or isn't allowed to participate. So for me, it's vital that the gigs happen again, and happen in the way that they used to happen, because that is what was magical about music.
Well, I remember CJ Wildheart when he was on the show saying exactly the same thing. He doesn't want people sitting down and chilling out at his gigs. He wants them up and having a good time, like.
For sure. You know, and it's a symbiotic relationship. The band and the audience become one at a concert. It is that connection, and it is the magic of music. And anything that's going to restrict that relationship is not going to make it like it was. Yeah, you may get some kind of substitute or some lesser version, but it's just like a football match, you know, just like a concert. It's everyone that makes it great. not just the band, not just the audience. It's the relationship between the two.
Awesome. Well, look, on that note, Myke, absolute pleasure to have you, mate. Hey, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's a real honor. Before we go, can you just tell people the best places to go and get your solo music?
Well, I mean, within my own career, you know, I've gone down the route of making my own albums. You know, I don't even make these songs digitally available anymore, because I believe that the iTunes and the Spotify's, I do believe that they're killing music. The deals that we all signed back in the day, they killed us. You know, the record deals were rubbish, the splits were rubbish. And so for me as an artist to be able to exist, it's about me cutting out all of the middlemen, and that my fan base and my fans come directly to me. So my website is mykegray.rocks, www.mykegray.rocks. And I have a shop there which enables you to buy all of my CDs. I send digital music to you directly, so you can purchase a track, and then I send you the artwork and the track directly. And so for me as an artist in 2020, it's the only way I can survive. If I have 1,000 people that buy my CD from me directly, that's £10,000 worth of revenue, which enables me to make the record. If I was to sell 1,000 copies via a record company, I would only I'd make less than £1,000. And of course, that doesn't enable you to make the record. And you've handed over all of your art for good, for life, forever. You will never see it again, and you're unlikely to see an honest statement coming from a record company. You know, so for me, it's been absolutely vital. So if you want to purchase my music, then come to www.mykegray.rocks on my Facebook page. And I'm also on Patreon as well, where if you sign up to my Patreon site, then you get all of this lost music that's never been heard. So, you know, I put on songs from Skin and Jagged Edge and Red, White and Blue, things that have never been released, concert footage that I've been taking for 30 years. And you get all this bonus stuff as well. So that's, if you want to support my music, that's the best ways.
That's great. We'll make sure we get that in those links in the description.
Thank you very much.
Definitely. Until next time, my friends, my name's Adam Feasy. This is Mark Davis Stallard. Big thank you to Myke Gray for coming on the show. We now release you from the madhouse.
My pleasure. And it is an honor. It's always an honor to interact with people that love rock music.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Excellent, mate. And